Okay, welcome everyone. So my name is Tiffany. I'm the senior class president.
I'm
The rest of
Chirag.
the senior class
I'm the senior class treasurer.
Hi, America. I'm senior class vice president.
And we have 3 Husky alumni today to help you guys answer all of your admission questions. So if you guys could introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
Okay, I guess I'll start first. Hello, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Meghan Avis, and I graduated from Washington High School in 2019. And I'm currently a second-year student at Alumni Community College, and I hope to graduate with a major in political science after I transfer.
Hi everyone, I'm Sahir. I go to Stanford. I graduated last year in 2020, and currently undecided on my major, but leaning into like symbolic systems or anthropology.
Hey everyone, my name is Mikey. I'm also a fellow member of the class of 2020 with Sahir. I attend UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business, and my degree is in Business Administration and Global Management.
All right, thank you. So we'll get started to the questions right now. So the first one is related to Common App and is, what are some tips to writing the extracurricular portion of the Common App?
Yeah, so I think what I tried to focus on was like specific things I did in extracurriculars, like whether, like even if I was part of like a bigger extracurricular, whether like I organized things or made an impact, like really focusing on that impact. And also like whether like if you had to work with a bunch of people or things that you did that might like that you took out from the extracurricular that might be different from others. Those are super cool to put in and might make you like stand out. Otherwise, I think like putting in leadership positions is always good. But also like, I think it's good to show that you can work with other people and also can organize your sort of own events and things.
Okay, next question is also for Common Apps. What is the difference between early action, early decision, and regular decision? What is your advice on which one to apply to?
Yeah, so I think the main decision between, the main difference between early action and early decision is like early action isn't binding. So like if you get into a school, you don't have to go there, as opposed to early decision where if you get into a school, you do have to go there unless there's some special circumstances. And then there's also sort of like restrictive early action. And I don't know if there's like restrictive early decision. I think early decision, usually you can only apply to one school. But like with restrictive early action, you can only apply to one school and no others. And then regular decision is, so early decision and early action are usually due in like the November timeframe, like within a month from now. And then regular decision is due, I think in like this late December, early January, something around that time. And I think advice on which one to apply to, if you have sort of like a dream school or a school which you would like consider your top choice, and you feel like your application can be ready by early November, I'd say like go with the early action, early decision, because it shows, especially with early decision where you're bound to the school, like it shows you have a lot of interest in the school, and that really helps. Like it's already one thing that's putting you above other people who are applying. And with early action, sort of there's not that binding part, but it shows that you have a level of interest that's kind of exceptional. But I would say like only do early action, early decision if you feel like your app would be the same quality as it would be if you spent another month on it. Like you have the opportunity to spend another month on it or 2 months on it and submit it by the regular decision deadline. So I would say if you really like the school and really feel like you can get like a great quality app done by the early action deadline, then go for it.
So the next question is for UC apps. And so how do you choose, or how do you decide which of the 4 personal insight questions to answer?
That's a really good question. Also to the host too, I don't know if you guys are, oh, you're recording it, sweet, yeah. So in terms of the UCs, there's the PIQs, or personal insight questions. These really form like the basis of kind of like your essay portion of the application. And in terms of selecting ones that you feel like would fit best for you, I would definitely read over the questions, even print them out, just kind of read them through a couple of times and make a little list of like kind of either involvements or activities that you've done and how you could connect them to the questions. And then after that, just kind of let your words flow, kind of get some rough drafts of your writing, maybe get them proofread a couple times as well. But these questions are really essential and they're really good for making applications stand out because you have the most freedom and flexibility. You can't really change like your GPA at this point or the classes you're taking. So this is a really great opportunity for you to show your individuality.
All right, next question is for the community college. What are some benefits of going to university straight away versus going to a community college first?
Awesome, thank you for the question. I would say, based on a community college experience, it definitely is beneficial, especially financially. Especially during these times, not a lot of like money is hard sometimes to get by, but financially, it's probably like just a tenth of a cost as you would for a university or a private, but with like the same education, right? And also some benefits, right, would be smaller class sizes is definitely a plus for community colleges. Also, your professors are more open for office hours. So if you definitely know like help with professors with classwork or definitely just want to establish relationships with them, I would definitely say those options are more available. And with community colleges, again, I really want to emphasize that it's for you to grow. You're not rushed into that whole UC college experience, right? Where you also have to worry about dorming, where you have to worry about like, your food options. And so I would say those would be some benefits. I know people who do transfer and are happy that they were able to have those 2 years to get adjusted to that college life. And so, yeah, I can speak for the community college and those benefits.
Next question is also for community college. So class of 2021 doesn't have to take the SAT, but for example, if I went to Alumni for 2 years and wanted to transfer to a 4-year college, would I have to take the SAT or ACT?
So I know as of news recently with the COVID pandemic, right now the tests such as the SAT or the ACT are not required. And for now, to my understanding, you're trying to slowly get rid of that requirement. However, I would highly recommend you do your research when it comes to that option of do I need to take it or do I not need to take it, because different schools require different requirements. And so while it may be that right now you do not need to take the test, do your research because it can vary from time to time.
The next question is, if community is the only choice and the person used the example of Ohlone, when should a student register for Ohlone? And what if I need help applying for Ohlone, and can a counselor help a student apply?
Was the question is when should you apply or how?
When?
When? Oh,
And how,
definitely.
kind of.
When and how, okay. So yeah, perfect. So yes, you can definitely make an appointment with a counselor. Counselors are available either by phone call now or you can email them. They can set up an appointment, and registering is very simple. So we have for Ohlone specifically, we have a website called Web Advisor where you can register for classes, add classes, or even drop classes. And so it's simple as that typically, really. And then if you're a new student, we would ask you to go through orientation, which basically just allows you to familiarize yourself with the Ohlone process. But again, if you want to help get help from a counselor, then yes, those options are available. I would just say that, so counselors are a great help. They're a great resource to use when trying to figure out your classes and your next steps, especially when to transfer. There's different websites. So one resource that I strongly suggest for transfer students is called assist.org. Now assist.org allows you to see what classes you need to transfer yourself. So I know this can also help coincide with what the counselor information gives you, but having that extra resource and utilizing that tool assist.org for yourself makes you also just like double check, right? Because you don't want to take unnecessary classes that counselors may suggest to you, and it kind of like ruins your 2-year plan of trying to transfer out as quickly as possible. So yeah, I think that I can elaborate more, I think, on assist.org if anyone else wants to afterwards.
All right, thank you. So the next set of questions are just general questions. And the first one is, what happens if you take your SAT after the application is due?
Well, I guess if I'm not mistaken, if you take your SAT after the application for the college is due, you most likely wouldn't be able to submit those scores in time to colleges because the College Board has a little bit of a delay in getting the scores back from your SAT. You don't get them instantly. But again, like Megan mentioned earlier, I think a lot of the schools are really adapting to the current COVID situation. And I think a lot of schools have also dropped the requirements for standardized testing. So if you're maybe in a rush to like take the SAT or ACT right now and get it in before November, maybe put that effort into working on your applications, but also check with each individual school. So that way you know whether they still require the SAT or the ACT or not.
Yeah, I think a lot of times there's like on the school's website, it tells you what the last SAT score they'll accept is. So like if you're applying like early or regular decision, like they'll say like the last one we'll take is like the September SAT date or like the November SAT date. But yeah, echoing what Michael and or what Mikey and Megan have been saying, like it's kind of different this year, so I'm sure they're a little bit more lenient.
Okay, so next question is, what are some things you learned in college that you wish you would have known when applying?
I can answer that question a little bit. So I would say that don't let the stigma of community college get to you. I know there's like a lot of pressure for students, especially. So yeah, just don't let that affect you. Your education is your education, right? Eventually, we're all going to be end up in the same place in the workforce. And so also like two resources that I wish I had when going into a freshman was I mentioned assist.org, where like you're able to figure out what classes you need to take before you transfer, but also ratemyprofessor.com because um, basically some professors are, you know, more open to others. Some professors are not as helpful, so you really want to make sure your college is like high school, like it will go by so fast, right? And so you want to have professors that are there to help you and have good experiences and also open to like questions and everything. Like, do they post their lectures online? Are they open for office hours? Maybe do you need letters of rec? Are they available to do that? And so definitely using Rate My Professor helped a lot with my freshman and sophomore year so far. I know students who had horrible stories with their professors, and unfortunately they had to drop out of the class just because of those bad experiences. So I don't want the same thing to happen to all of you, right? So again, assist.org and Rate My Professor would be two resources that I wish I knew before going into college.
Okay, so the next question is kind of like specific. Would students who haven't taken Algebra 2 or chemistry get into a college? Like they have taken 3 years of science but not chemistry? Also, what if the student had 1D for 1 semester of math but passed every class in all 3 years? Would that student have to go to a community college, or are there colleges that will accept the students? Is there another choice other than just community? Community is a good option, but the student wants another option of college. And they want you to list some colleges there of like that's possible.
I think this is definitely a good question to maybe direct toward your Washington counselor. I think in at least for my time in Washington, the counselors kind of range by last name. So if you go on the Washington website and you find a counselor, that they'll definitely be open to helping you work through like kind of setting up your academic record and seeing if that matches for you to, apply to certain colleges, whether that's community UCs or even the Cal State system too. So yeah, I think maybe work on that with your counselor in the next couple of weeks to line that up.
Okay. The next question is, how do I start?
I'm assuming the application process for colleges, or really just getting into that mindset, like, oh, I'm gonna be going to college. Like, let's say if you're a junior and you're thinking about it, or you're a senior right now, because I know the UC applications are open. They're due next month, I believe. And so in terms of how to get started, definitely think about where do you see yourself going? What do you want to do in life? Or like, what is your financial status right now? So like, if you want to get a good education and also pursue something, then maybe, yeah, community college is right for you. Or if you want to be in a different environment, then maybe transfer out of state. So when you say this, because it's a very general question, like how do I start, right? I would say think to yourself, like plan it out, plan everything out, or try to have a good mindset of planning everything out. And so in terms of community college as well, it's just like, if you want to, I mentioned like the application process is fairly simple. You can literally just schedule a meeting with your counselor and you can sign up for classes pretty quickly. And also having that conversation with your parents or your friends, what are they doing in life? Where are they going to go to college, right? And I know, like, I had to start thinking about it, especially when I remember, I don't know if it's required for you all anymore, but the iSearch, that was a whole debacle, where like I was researching how do I become, because I wanted to be a nurse anesthetist when I was a sophomore. So kind of like I had those conversations with people. It's like, how do you get where you are, right? So it kind of gave me my mindset, like, okay, I have to have this set of years after high school, right? So I was exposed to college in that sort of aspect, but also, again, it was a big thing. Going to a good college is a big thing in high school. But yeah, I don't know how to answer that specifically, but I think if anyone else wants to jump on that question, you're more than welcome to.
No, I think Megan, you did a great job. Like sort of talking about, I think like overall, like it takes like, you have to like get into a certain mindset before you apply, because it's like you're thinking about, like, this is sort of the first time you're thinking about like what you want to do, and like how you want to sort of take the next step in your life. And I think a big part of it is like, especially when you're writing like essays and like making your application, I think you just have to like, it like requires you to start thinking about sort of what you've done in the past, like what you're interested in and what you want to explore in the future. So like, and that process takes a lot of energy and time. So I think just like getting ready to be able to get that all on paper, because it's a lot more daunting than it sounds. Like when you think about like writing essays, like it sounds like you could like get those essays out in like a few days or so. But it takes like a while to sort of get essays out in like a sense that feels very authentic to you. So I think just recognize that it's going to take a while, and like sort of getting mentally ready for that that time is like a good place to start.
The next question is, what do you think is the strongest part of your application that helped you get into college you wanted the most?
I think this is a really good question, because for some, and it all depends on the individual. For some people, it could be an aspect of their application that they're really passionate about or that they've worked on for a long time. For me, I know it was kind of the scope of everything I've done. 'Cause, and also colleges look for length of activities, right? So if you have a lot of activities, then you can kind of it's good to kind of have a sense of continuity and slowly build yourself into leadership roles and activities that you're doing. I'd advise that for any of the younger members on this call, if they're freshmen, sophomores, or even juniors. But I think that overall, yeah, I think it's about weaving a story together for yourself. And I know I sound like some college counselor, and they always they'll always tell you stuff like that. But there is a reason it keeps getting repeated. It's about framing yourself in the right way. And I wouldn't necessarily say there's a make or break kind of aspect. The people reading your applications know this as well, and they do their best to try to consider you as a whole applicant.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think like it's really making sure you're authentic to your interests and like yourself. Like I would say like the essays are super important because like that's what really gives whoever's reading your application like a whole or like a holistic, I guess I don't want to use that word, but like a holistic sense of like who you are. And I think like that's the place where you really have the most control about how they're going to see you as an applicant. So just making sure like you feel good when you turn in those essays and like when you have those final drafts, I think is like the best way to sort of make sure you stand out, because like you want those essays to be something that only you could have written. Like that's something that is really true to yourself. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Okay, so the next question is what's like good basic tips for writing a good essay?
Ooh, okay. Let me see. I can share what other people I look up to right now who have been gone through the process that I'm going through right now. I can share what they've been saying. So number one is basically a general rule of thumb when it comes to writing applications is that every sentence needs to serve a purpose, right? So if you think that way, then you can omit all the fluff and details, right, that are unnecessary, because you only have you're limited to how much you can write. You can't just write your full-on story. Also, you just want to write your application so that it is like nearly impossible to have this application be under anyone else's name, right? You want to be authentic, right? And so, in other words, the goal is to have your raw story surface so transparently that like the application becomes a mirror image of you, right? You don't want another person to also have that similar story, because everyone's unique, everyone's individual. Their stories are going to be different, their paths are going to be different, right? So you want that to have reflect that in your application. And also, these applications are the only way typically that administration or administrators are going to be meeting you, or through these words or through these essays. And also, another thing is that like you want to ask yourself if your essay serves well in showing another side of yourself. So yeah, they can see your grades, but also like your extracurriculars. What are you passionate about? Like, let's say for political science, for me at least, like how I was actively involved in like student government, political activism, stuff like that. Even though like it may not show on like grade wise or whatever, but yeah, definitely that. And so I would say, yeah, just keep those things in mind. Be authentic, be passionate through your application. And again, this is your time to shine, right? You worked so hard for this is your time to shine, so focus on that. Sorry, there's birds.
Right. The next question is, how do I enter semester courses such as health, geography, econ?
I think I can't quite remember from last year. It seems like so long ago, but I know for at least econ, there was kind of like on the UC app and also on the Common app and Coalition app as well. There's like a drop down menu and you can select the subject from there. And I think you can also indicate whether it was like a full year class or a semester class. So that way the people reading it will know what it is, but also at the same time, I can remember stressing about like the same thing on my application too. Don't worry about it too much because they also understand like how a lot of the classes are structured. Like for example, in some high schools in California, they'll have like the health geography split, or they'll have like PE or some other classes. So yeah, don't worry about that too much, but just kind of look at the application, see how you can make it clear that there were two separate classes, because I don't know of anyone at Washington who was able to take health for a full semester.
I think we answered this question kind of briefly before, but is there anything else you guys want to add to what should I do for my application?
I guess I can add a little bit on, like, especially for transfer applications. Transfer applications are basically similar to when you would transfer as a senior in high school. But I would say that for transfer applications, you really want to focus on how you were able to grow and utilize your time during community college. And basically, I just want to say, before you even apply, utilize that time during community college. So if you weren't as involved in high school as much as you would like, I would say now is your time in community college to do those things. So like, if you want to join a club, join a club. If you want to be student body president, be student body president. You have more chances of getting into those UCs now than you would have when you were just a senior. So again, so now I would just say, like, be involved, make sure you are able to stand out, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of applicants. What can you do so that you stand out and are able to apply that to your application, right?
And I think to add on to sort of Megan's point earlier about like being authentic on essays and how to write like a good essay, I think a big thing, or like something that helped me start out, was like focusing on growth, and also like maybe like some unique things that I got out of certain extracurriculars that like only I feel like were authentic to me. Like when I did this extracurricular, what did I specifically get out of it? What did I learn from it? And that might be a good place to start, especially when you're writing like that super long Common App, or even like the UC essays, where it's like kind of daunting to get ideas down, but like focusing on that growth aspect, because that's really like what a lot of application readers are looking for. It's like, how have you specifically taken whatever you've done and like grown through it? And they're looking for like maybe like unique ways you've done that.
All right, so the next question is, what should we do to increase our chances of getting into a good college?
Sahir, if you want.
Yeah, no, it's kind of like the same thing we've kind of been saying, which is like making sure authentic. Like I think that's the biggest thing, is like you want to be like proud of your application, and make sure it like it's like kind of like a mirror image of you, like Megan said, just to like, because like that's sort of the most you can do from your side, is like put out the best version of yourself for a college, and then if they take you, like it's good for them. It's like you're adding to their college, like they're like wherever you go, you're going to add to that college's experience. So think about it in that sense, rather than like, oh, I really have to get to this college, otherwise like I'll be miserable. Like I think their attitude is like, you're putting out the best version of yourself, and like that's really what college ups is about, because you're learning about where you want to explore, what you want to do in the future, after sort of taking like a look at what you've done so far in your life. I mean, I think that authenticity is the biggest thing.
Okay. The next question is, how do I keep up with college deadlines and schoolwork at the same time?
I think for me, and this kind of, maybe it's a little bit late for some of the seniors, but this might apply a little bit to the juniors. You don't necessarily have to worry about college too much your junior year, but if you're able to use that summer before senior year as a little bit of extra time, maybe start writing and drafting your essays and even applications in like August, September period. That way you have the majority of the work behind you for the schools that you're applying to before you even start senior year. And the first part of senior year, you know, there's definitely some work, but the teachers in senior year also, they're aware that a lot of you guys are going to be applying to colleges. And I know definitely in my senior years, I had some teachers that, you know, they would assign like slightly less work. I mean, you guys might have more work. I don't really know because of the remote learning now, but yeah, I would say work ahead. You won't regret it if you can.
And like, I think doing a lot of that work ahead like helps you later, like when you have to write more essays for other colleges is like, one thing you can do is sort of like see whether you can reuse some essays for other colleges. And like, that saves a lot of time and effort. And you're essentially like telling each college the same thing about yourself. So it makes sense to sort of reuse parts of essays and sort of like rewrite so it's specific for colleges. And that was a big lifesaver, I think, for me, especially as like finals started and like school ramped up a bit.
The next question is, what makes you a strong candidate for college?
Again, it's been like a lot of what we've been saying about really trying to strive for that good application process. But yeah, I mean, if you make what makes you a strong candidate, again, to try to stand out, pursue what you want to do in the future so you can write about it, right? So yeah, I don't know, but basically what we've been saying.
All right, so the next question, I'm not sure if you guys would know to answer this, but like, how do we enter grades that are labeled as credit/no credit?
I believe it's been a while since I did my application, but I believe there is an option to credit or no credit, especially now. I think since UCs are adaptive to the changing times and like what is happening with COVID and everything, they should have that option of credit or no credit. So it shouldn't be an issue.
Do you know if colleges will accept transfers?
Yes, college will accept transfers. It may be selective for some students, but yes, colleges does do accept transfers, right? And then I guess for also the UC system, there is such thing as a tag. I forgot the acronym, but basically it's an agreement between community colleges and UCs where you are technically like I would say guaranteed admission, right? So you submit a tag to a certain school. I believe the deadline already passed. I think certain UCs are extended their deadlines, but for me, let's say for my instance, I tagged to Santa Barbara, right? Seeing that if I do get in, I have a higher chance of getting into Santa Barbara now than I would as I think just like the general admission. So that's from a community college to a UC standpoint. Yeah.
And I think sort of the same thing applies to privates as well. Like some privates might have more selective like transfer application processes, but most colleges accept transfers and have like pretty big transfer communities. So that's always an option. So don't like discount yourself to do that because like a lot of people do that and get really great returns out of it.
So the next question is, if you have a subpar GPA, will this immediately eliminate you from the application process?
I would say no. You definitely do not need like a 4.0 to get into a good school. That being said, it means you shouldn't try to maintain your GPA. I mean, it always helps to have a good GPA. You can also say in your application or your essays like why you have that certain GPA, and maybe it's because you are focusing more on your extracurricular activities, right? So definitely utilizing again those essay portions to explain your situation and why that happened.
The last question we have is, how do you sign up for financial aid?
So there's generally, you have to fill out the FAFSA for like federal aid, and also the CSS, I believe. And also on the Common App, there's certain schools have like different financial aid programs as well that are like need-based. So you can like, depending on which schools you're applying to, you can also like check the like I need aid box. And then I believe on the UC side, there's something similar, but I think there's like the Cal Grant as well. Um, so there's like a lot of resources, and I would say it definitely really helped for me to reach out to my counselor, or my high school counselor, Miss Madrine, that was mine. But like, again, like Mikey said, like organized by alphabetically. And like they had a lot of great financial aid resources. There's also financial aid from the school, the Alumni Foundation, so you can apply to those. So there's always more resources that you can use, and that a lot of other students might not use to get financial aid or certain scholarships and things. Yeah.
I just want to add on to Sahir's question. For Alumni, I know for Alumni, there's the Alumni Promise Grant. I mean, for community colleges, if you apply for this grant, basically you can get your first or 2 years free of college tuition, right? So you do not have to pay. So it really helps students a lot. I don't know if the application process for that is already over, but especially look into it. If you're a junior or thinking about going to community college, you are possibly getting free tuition. So again, scholarships only help, right? They can't hurt you.
I think one thing I forgot to mention is if you're a junior, I think the deadline for seniors already passed, but there's also programs like QuestBridge, where if you're like a low income senior, you can apply through that process and like have application fees waived, and like sign up for like specific financial aid programs. So that's super helpful. I know a lot of people who got into really cool selective schools by using that.
All right, thank you. So now we'll be transitioning into questions from the chat. So the first one is, when is a good time to take SAT subject tests?
I took mine whenever like I felt like I was comfortable with the content I was taking them, like, or whatever I was taking them in. Like I took the bio one, and I took that after taking bio, like when I felt I was like ready to, and like I think that saves a lot of like and like a lot of like the self-studying you have to do. Like if you've taken the class and are already getting prepared for the final, like that's a great time to take it. But again, like I don't think they're very important in the process. What's a lot more important is like the essays you're writing, and especially with like test optional this year, like I think even if you like don't take them, like it's totally fine. They can see like your academics in like other parts of your application.
The next person asks, how's the social life on Alumni College?
The social life at Alumni College, I would say is pretty much like similar what you would get. I mean, I know right now it's like everything's virtual, but still you can, if you want to, be involved, right? There's still a lot of clubs that are still happening on Alumni campus. I would say, yeah, go research the clubs, and also like maybe some like social events that they're hosting where you get to meet new students. I know from like the ASOC, the student government at Alumni, we've been trying to make sure new students especially get involved. I know, yeah, it's really difficult right now, especially, but if it were in person, it would be very easy to meet new friends, right? We recently got like 3 new buildings, right? A lot of students utilize the library and stuff like that. So you can meet people through there, right? But yeah, it shouldn't be an issue, right?
So the next question is for Michael. So what made you take a business major, and are you happy with your choice?
Yes, some people say business majors are the least intelligent, and that might be true in some cases. I know there's some slander for that. But yes, I am happy with my choice of selecting the business major. I was involved in activities in high school that kind of demonstrated a passion for business, and also some things to consider. If you are applying to colleges as a business major, feel free to reach out to me if you want any info on them. Specifically, the program I'm a part of is the Global Management Program. So if you'd like any info on that, feel free to reach out. But depending on some colleges, they'll have business schools that are direct admission, which means you get into the business major as a freshman. Certain other schools, they might have, you're admitted as like a pre-business major, so you have to wait to declare the major. So that's another factor to consider in terms of if you are interested in the business major.
The next question is, what are the differences between what UCs might look for in the application and what private colleges might look for?
I think for the most part, at least in my experience, applying to both UCs and also private schools, it's definitely a similar feel and layout in terms of the activities and essays you're doing. As Sahir mentioned earlier, you can definitely recycle parts of your essays or even put the exact same essay. Just make sure if it's about a school, make sure you change the wording because you don't want to have another school's name in your essay. But yeah, I think a lot of the work you do can kind of be used on both sides.
And like you essentially want each school to get the same thing out of your application. So it's a good strategy, I think, that helps save time and like keeps you authentic to your application.
What is the main factor that influenced you to choose your school?
I guess I can start for a little bit. The reason, okay, so I applied as a senior to a bunch of UCs and also states as well. But my intended major was supposed to be, I was supposed to go into medicine. I was supposed to be again, I mentioned nurse anesthetist, so I was going to medical school. I was going to become a nurse because I come from a doctors and nurses, because it was really encouraged in my family that I would become a nurse. However, toward the end of my senior year, I didn't really see myself pursuing nursing. And so I was really like going down about myself. It was like, I don't know, like I'm so struggling. I was like, what do I do? Because I like, based on what I was doing, I was in student government. I really loved like being involved in politics. I was like, okay, I want to major in political science, but like how, like, what do I want to do with that? I was like, I want to eventually become a lawyer. So because I decided, like, because for me, I like, okay, well, I don't want to go to Riverside for medicine. I decided, okay, why don't I take the time, go to Alumni so I can figure what I want to do and figure it out. So that's the reason why I went to Alumni College, because of my change in major last minute, also trying to still figure out what I wanted to do. But now being a second year, I'm able to like confidently say like, okay, now I'm a political science student who eventually wants to become a lawyer and maybe work in a government office, right? I didn't have that same confidence when I was a senior. So that kind of influenced my decision to go here.
Yeah, I actually have to head out soon, so I can take this question maybe. I think for me, like, it's a very hard choice because like there's so many factors that play into it. Like from like whether you're getting the right financial aid from a school to like where you want, like you see yourself going, like the opportunities at each school. And I think like it matters from person to person. Like people make different choices even when like given the same schools that they're accepted into. So I think it really like it's a hard choice, and like you want to involve your family into it, your friends, like people who you like who matter to you, like, and who might give advice. But at the end of the day, it's really your choice. After you're given these schools, like don't feel the pressure from any one person or one individual to make a certain choice just because like they think it's good for you. Like you know what's good for you, especially after going through the college app process and like sort of realizing like where you want to go. So I think it's a very personalized process, and everyone has different like factors that play into it. And I think the senior class officers wanted us to sort of say last words or tips, and at the head, so I'll just say that now maybe. And I think like the biggest thing for me that I kind of I had a little bit, but I wish I had a little bit more of, was someone who like I could talk to about anything, or like someone like I could go to through like this process and talk about how I was feeling in general, because it's a very stressful and a very like introspective process that like makes you think super deeply about yourself as a person. And like that's hard, especially when you have school and extracurriculars still going on. Like it's a lot to take in and a lot to think about. So it helps to sort of have someone trusted you can go to and just like rant to, or just like talk to about how you're feeling. And I think having that person, like that's part of like building that mindset for college, is like making sure you have like a healthy outlet to talk to about these things. So I think that's the biggest thing, or biggest piece of advice I have for the college app season. And I'm gonna leave my email and my number in the chat so you guys can reach out with any other questions. But thank you, officers. I will head out.
Thank you for
Thank
joining.
you.
Nice to hear.
See you guys.
I saw here.
Bye.
Okay. The next question is community college a better option if you're undecided?
If you need a better option if you're undecided. I know students who go to a UC and are still undecided in that factor, but if by like your first or second year that you do not know what you want to do, I would recommend going to community college, because if first of all, you are still paying for classes even if you are changing your majors, right? So I would say on a financial aspect, community college is better if you're undecided, because you won't have to pay as much if you are changing from nursing classes to political sciences in my case. And so, yeah, and definitely being able to just be in that college setting rather than waiting until to go to a UC is good, because then you're exposed to people who are in the same boat. But also you are able to utilize those college counselors as well to help you figure out what you want to do, right? So I would recommend and like endorse the option to go to community college, but really everyone's experience is to their own experience. So yeah.
I second everything Megan just said. Sounds good.
The next question is for Megan. How often should we talk to our counselors if we're planning to transfer? Also, I'm not sure you said whether or not you're transferring, but if you are, how easy has Alumni made the process?
Okay, awesome. First of all, thank you for the questions. And for counselors, I would say try to talk with them every semester. So we go for Alumni semester based. So we have the, I believe similar to high school, but I would definitely say make sure you keep in contact with the counselors at least once a semester. Because also, if you are applying to privates, they're a great resource for letters of recommendation, right? So you want to establish relationships with your counselor. And unlike high school, actually, counselors are not assigned to you. You are able to pick and choose your counselors based on availability. But if you want to make sure you have that same counselor, make sure you also are in contact with them daily. And so in terms of transferring, yes, I am transferring. This is my last year at Alumni. I do hope to transfer. I mentioned that I tagged to Santa Barbara, but my main UC that I really want to go to is UCLA, UC Berkeley, or UC San Diego. And for how has Alumni made it the process easy? Yes, I would say Alumni has made the process easy. Just because there's a lot of Alumni hosts a lot of like webinars, especially online, to help students with transfer questions, but also they invite UC admissions people to talk about the process and what they are looking for. So they definitely having those resources, Alumni has definitely made the process easier. But I would say while those options are available, I would say also try to do your own research ahead of time so you're not as lost. But yeah, I could definitely talk more about the process one-on-one if you are down for that too. So.
Next question is, if you get accepted to a university and decide not to go that year, can they push your acceptance?
I think by push, are you saying that maybe they might cancel your acceptance? I think this kind of depends on a university to university basis, but there is something known as a gap year, which is where you can be accepted to a university, and then you kind of have a year-long period that you can take off to do whatever you want, to travel, to work. Yeah, and it's kind of up to you. I think after you've been accepted into a university, you can go through their channels to apply for a gap year. I know one of my friends who's going to UC Davis is taking a gap year right now. So even though he graduated in the same year as me, he's not currently enrolled in college.
So the next question is, if we take classes at a local community college in high school, how do we represent that in our applications?
I'm assuming they mean like dual enrollment programs. So yes, as a high schooler, you are able to take community college classes, especially at Alumni through our Alumni dual enrollment program. One that also helps with time, like get your credits done faster. And how do we represent that in our application? Now, personally, I didn't specifically take Alumni college classes when I was in high school, but I don't know if there's an option for that. I think to specifically say in your application that, or I know that when you're transferring or when you're trying to get your classes done, that those credits will still apply. And you won't have to take as many classes in the university that you're transferring to. So I think definitely, well, you can write that down that you took the classes. I think once you get to that university and like questioning whether or not you can have that apply toward your overall credits, talk to the local counselor.
Great, thank you. The next question is, do you have a chance of getting into extremely competitive schools if you had a lot of C's from freshman, sophomore year, but eventually got a 4.0 first semester senior year?
I think in terms of your GPA, they do like to see improvement. Colleges are very happy if they see like an upward grade trend. So you definitely have that going in your favor. Overall, like a lot of colleges do have like the average GPA ranges listed like on their websites for in terms of their freshman admission. So what you can do is you can pick some colleges, and at least when I was applying to colleges, I had like reach schools, and then I had kind of like middle like middle schools, and then like safety schools. So that there's kind of you could apply to a broad range. And yeah, I wouldn't say that a GPA would a GPA on the lower side would count you out. And as Megan mentioned too, like there's also space on the application for you to explain if your GPA is a little bit lower.
Did you guys choose the same major for every college you applied to, or did you pick specific majors for each college based on what each school was good at?
I think it's important maybe not to focus on what each school is good at, but what you're good at yourself. So in my case, I was interested in business, but I also applied to kind of not directly business majors, but also like associated majors such as management, management sciences, or economics when I was applying to other schools too, if those majors weren't available. So I think really go with what you're interested in. If you're targeting yourself to a certain school based on their rankings, and you're also interested in what they're doing, that's a great fit then. But you don't necessarily need to say like, oh, this school has like a higher ranking than this school, so I need to specifically apply to this program.
The next question is there a difference between taking an AP in school versus studying it on your own and taking it outside of school?
I think the main difference that comes to my mind is APs do tend to give you a boost in your weighted GPA in high school. And if you take them outside of school, you may be able to take the test. And if you do get a 3, 4, or 5, get college credit for it, but that maybe won't be reflected in your high school GPA.
Next question is, how do you think being a student in the Bay Area affects your application/chances of being accepted? For example, do you work harder than students that might be in less populated states?
I don't know if it would say it really impacted the way I got like accepted being in the Bay Area. If you were thinking about how does living in the Bay Area influence you as a person, maybe you can write that down in the application. I don't, sorry, I'm confused by the question specifically, but I don't think where you live, I mean, maybe if you were living in impoverished communities, maybe you can write that down and maybe that would impact also your application process. But if you're talking about the Bay Area in general, I don't believe so. Right?
I think also just jumping onto what Megan just said, in terms of the Alumni like community college process, the Cal State system, and also UCs as well, they do have like quotas to take students from California, and they are public schools, right? They aren't private schools, so they do. They're literally meant to be there for the benefit of the state. So if you are a Californian student, I think that definitely could count more in your favor. But again, it depends so much on an individual basis.
This one's for Common and UC but whatever. What is one major important aspect to be aware of? Who should you go to proofread your essays?
Erica, was that question for UC and Common App?
Yeah.
I guess I could speak a little bit in terms of the UC essays for proofreading. I think it's important to definitely give yourself time to proofread the essays. Go through them a couple times yourself. If you have a friend or a person who's also applied to the college, or a parent or a teacher too, it's good to have them look over it. But there's also a balance, right? There's a fine line. You want to make sure it's still your writing. You don't want to have the other people write the essays for you, and take their feedback into consideration. But at the end of the day, it is your essay and your work. So you can decide what you want to do with those suggestions.
The next question is, does it help to demonstrate interest in a major?
Yeah, definitely. It shows that you're passionate about this and this is why you strongly want to go to a university for that specific purpose. I mentioned that I reflected myself, like what was I doing that made me want to go to political science eventually, right? And so right now, in terms of wanting to transfer to a UC, right now I'm definitely focusing on my major. Not because of like, I want to demonstrate to my UC that this is what I want to do, but also because you're supposed to be passionate about it, right? You want to be involved with things because this is what you like doing. And you want to continue to do that even when you are in the future in your university. So yeah, it definitely helps.
All right, so last question is, for Common and UC application, what is one major important aspect to be aware of?
I think for both the Common App and the UC app, again, I can't stress enough the importance of the essays, because at the end of the day, they're looking at, sheets and sheets, thousands of these applications of students to all these different schools all across the nation. and even internationally too. So that's really your chance to have your own unique voice, really truly express who you are, because the person who's reading your application will have that connection when they can hear your voice, when they're seeing the stories you're telling, the impacts you've made. They don't necessarily have those same emotions when they just look at your transcript and they see a bunch of grades.
All right, thank you. So as we are nearing the end of our event, do any of the Husky alumni have any last minute tips or advice to the seniors and the rest of the Washington community?
Okay, so I'll finish with these. Definitely don't pay attention to the stigma of community college. It's an option that is available for everyone, whether you are low income or whether you like had great grades. Because for me, right, I would say that I was a really great student, right, but I was having that conflict of where I wanted to do with my life. So at least community college at least helped me get there. And I would say that if anyone has any questions in regards to Alumni or community college, feel free to reach out. I'll leave my contact info in the chat. Also, I can also connect you with other people who are maybe have a similar major to you. And I'm also like willing to help you out further, maybe read your applications if you are doing that as well, because also I'm going through that same process this year. So yeah, we're on the same boat. And I just want to thank you everyone for coming.
Yeah, I think thanks for that, Megan. And also thanks for everyone for just taking your afternoons to come and listen to us, and hopefully you got something out of this. In terms of some last bits of advice, I think we are in a super kind of crazy situation right now. We don't have a timetable for when it's going to end. And I think a lot of the colleges in this case, they'll be empathetic. They'll know that you guys are going through a lot. I can't even imagine what it would be like to apply to colleges in the middle of a pandemic. It was already hard enough for me last year. But I really think be true to yourself. Don't be afraid of the hard work in front of you. You know, if there's, it definitely is a slog to get through these applications, but once you've submitted them, which is kind of, and hopefully if you are working at least a little bit ahead, once you've submitted your applications in like November, December, January timeframe, don't worry about them. Try best you can to enjoy the last part of senior year, because at that point, nothing you can do will really impact the chance of your application. And also, like, don't do anything stupid either, because I've heard some really sad stories of people who have gotten acceptances to certain colleges and they've had them taken away for dumb reasons. And yeah, just to echo what Megan was saying as well, I'll put my info in the chat at the end of this, and feel free to reach out to me if you guys have any advice on the UC process, Common App process, or just want to talk in general about this whole application systems.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for all the attendees for coming, and also to our Husky alumni for taking time out of the day to answer all these questions and help us. And with that said, thank you for coming.